So we're going to talk about curiosity today, but we're going to talk specifically about how do you do it. We spend all this time talking about curiosity and saying, we need to be curious. Great leaders are curious. Great young professionals are curious. In relationships, we're curious about our significant other. Okay, that sounds good and well, but so many people don't do this effectively. So we're going to talk about how do we do this more effectively. So I'm really, really excited about this, Whitney, because I consider myself a pretty curious guy. Came a lot from my upbringing, ironically, because my parents were not curious. So I spent my entire life growing up with them not really interested in my needs, my wants, my feelings. We just kind of walked around the house silently together. So it was really important to me that I gave that to other people because I saw how much I didn't have that. So I went off and got my therapy degree and majored in communications in undergrad. So I spent my whole life on developing these skills. And so I take it for granted. I often say, well, gosh, just be more curious. But that's not fair. There are some things we need to be doing. So when you think about curiosity, Whitney, either best practices or challenges, what initially comes to mind for you?
So when we were talking a little bit about this off camera and I saw you writing questions and I got curious as to what your questions were. Part of what comes down to curiosity to me is it really is a communication line back and forth, right? Even if you're not the one speaking, one of the points I brought up was giving cues that you are listening. So again, listening to actually hear, not listening to respond. So I notice often what I do is I'm almost like a rock out head nodder that I constantly am head nodding and I just do it naturally. At least I feel like I do it naturally somewhere. Maybe it developed kind of like you were talking about in your story, but I head nod to let somebody know that I'm paying attention to them. And I feel like that indirectly encourages them to continue speaking and continue sharing with me. I feel like it makes them feel comfortable, and it also validates what they're saying because I'm showing them I'm actually listening to you. I'm not looking over your shoulder. I'm not looking at my watch, my phone. I'm just looking right at you and listening to what you have to say.
Beautiful. So what I love where you took this conversation is you really helped set up why this is so important. Because we can do that active listening. We can do prompts that encourage people to talk, and that's great. They'll talk, but we're not really guiding it because we're not asking questions. We're just nodding and they're just talking to us, right? They're telling us a bunch of stuff. It's kind of a free flow of thoughts and ideas. That's not bad. That's good. But when I'm thinking about curiosity, I think what I hadn't really put words around until you said that was it's a way to actively go in for information that you are interested in. And by doing so, the person experiences you as empathetic. So it's a win-win. You get information that you want, you learn something, and they say, gosh, this person really is interested in me. So I'll tell kind of a brief story to set this up. So a few years ago, I was doing work in this particular division I was working with. It was part of a large financial services organization. And this division had undergone a bunch of mergers and acquisitions. In fact, 4 of them over a 4-year period.
Oh, wow.
So the president said to me, he said, I really don't know what kind of division we have here. Can you help out? I said, sure. So I did all these interviews, interviewing people about the culture and what they like or don't like. And I go back to him with a big report. And I said, all right, here's the report. I'm going to go over it line item with you, line item by line item. But the bottom line is this. Everyone said, you're a really empathetic leader. Well, I expected him to say, oh, that's great news, because who doesn't want to hear they're an empathetic leader?
Right.
Well, he'd come from an investment banking background. So he was kind of trained to be kind of no nonsense. And he thought of himself as a kind of very serious investment banker type. And he kind of looked at me and he scratched his head and he said, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think I'm curious at all or empathetic at all, is what he said. I'll tie it into curiosity in a minute. And he said, look, work is work, personal is personal. I don't want to talk about personal stuff at work. I only want to talk about work. And on top of that, I don't want to go out to dinner with a colleague or coworker after dinner. This is my team, but not my family. I'm really clear on that. So I want to go home and see my real family at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at all these people saying this guy's empathetic, and he's not giving me any cues or clues that he's empathetic. And finally, I just sit there kind of staring at him, and he breaks the silence, and he says, there's one thing I do. When I'm walking around the office, I'm asking folks, so what are you working on? Well, tell me more about that. Well, how can I help you? Where do you want to go in your career? How can I help you get there? He takes the one topic of work, the only thing he really wants to talk about, and he gets genuinely curious about everybody on his team. And the light bulb goes off for me that curiosity and empathy are experienced in many ways the same way. So if we want to become more of an empathetic leader, curiosity is also one of the pathways to get there.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes us smarter. It tests out our assumptions when we're curious, and we're not making bad bets because we're getting other people's thinking. People feel heard. People feel connected. People feel appreciated. We're viewed as humble. It just makes us better all the way around if we do it.